Greetings. My name is John Peterson, Executive Director with School Administrators. Today is February 18th, and we're here at the state capitol. The House is just adjourned, and I have convinced and I guess talked Representative Schlekeway into joining us, Todd Schlekeway. I guess one of the reasons that I invited Todd is that Todd is a member of House Education, and I think most educators agree that he is a very interested and helpful legislator for our issues. So Todd is our guest today, and with that, for a lot of our viewers, Todd, though, the name Schlekeway, like with me, I mean, if you follow athletics at all, we've all heard of Schlekeways. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Well, thanks for the opportunity to join your update here, John. I grew up in Mobridge, South Dakota. I'm the son of two educators. My dad, Jim, has taught government and history, and he's been the head basketball coach at Mobridge for almost 30 years now, and he's one of the longest tenured active coaches in the state of South Dakota. My mother just recently retired from a long-time career in education. She was an English and speech teacher, and then she worked for an ESA, Northwest Area Schools, the last 5 years before her retirement. And most of my dad's family went into education. There were 10 kids in his family, 9 boys, 1 girl. Most of them went into education. Most of them became coaches, and most of them stayed in the state of South Dakota. So it's certainly a name that people have heard of in South Dakota.
So then I know, I think you're a trained teacher, but you're not in the field right now.
Yeah, I have a master's in education. I'm certified in both government and history, just like my dad. And it's one of those things I could see myself moving back to that field at some point. I'm in a situation now. I work for a public relations company that does PR work for a consortium of energy companies, and it's been a good job. They've given me the green light to run for office, and but I could definitely see myself down the road getting back into the education field.
So now you're a sophomore. You last year was your freshman class. Any changes from last year to this year that you see here in the House, in the Capitol?
Well, first of all, John, it clearly is the comfort level you have. I'm much more comfortable this year. You spend that first session developing relationships with the other legislators, with the lobbyists, with the heads of associations, and once you come back for year two, those relationships have been established. Things become much easier. You know who to ask questions.
You know who to go to for information, and just from the standpoint too of the procedure of what happens in a committee, the legislative procedure, both in committee and on the floor. So year two is much more comfortable than year one was.
Well, a little less money this year.
Yes,
is the challenge.
Yes, and I should reiterate, from a comfort standpoint of the legislative process, year two is more comfortable. From a financial viewpoint, year two is obviously more challenging. Last year, obviously, the stimulus money really helped us, especially in the education department.
Yeah. Well, we've got 10 minutes, Todd, and it certainly wouldn't be a podcast without talking about legislation. Let's start out with one that was in House Ed this week. In fact, I think it was, I believe it was yesterday, and that was 1248. And that was a bill that is going to, I think, help growing school districts. Do you want to talk a little bit about 1248?
Yeah, I'd like to touch on that, John. That bill, House Bill 1248, I believe is one of the most significant bills that we will pass out of there this year. And what it will do is, for school districts that have seen explosive enrollment numbers over the last few years, and we have those in southeast South Dakota. I represent Sioux Falls, but right by my district is T, South Dakota. Then, of course, we have Harrisburg, Brandon Valley. And those schools, because they're growing so fast, they're increasing enrollment money later. And so what this bill will do is revise the time frame when they get that money up front. And it's a win-win. And at the end of the day, this bill won't be implemented till the year 2013, but it will end up actually being a cost savings for the state, because eventually it'll pay for 13 years of education. And the way it is set up right now, it's 13 and a half years that are funded. They're just not getting that money right away. So I was surprised it hasn't been done yet, but it certainly is significant for a lot of the growing schools in southeast South Dakota.
You know, and it's not, I mean, and it's certainly good for the Harrisburgs and the T's and the Brandon Valleys, but I mean, it's good for any school that's growing.
Yeah.
I mean, to get them, I mean, with some of these smaller schools, they don't have the numbers, but yet percentage-wise, it's a big issue. So anytime you can get the money sooner, it's going to be beneficial. So,
Absolutely.
you know, one of those few bills where it was kind of win-win. I mean, where it didn't cost anything. Another one that I found interesting, and this is the second year that this has come forward, and that's House Bill 1259, where we were going to charge to play, you know, for extracurricular activities, where we're going to allow school boards to charge to participate. And I know we certainly spoke against that bill, and you voted against it. Any comments on that one?
Well, that's certainly an interesting debate. I think 34 states allow local school districts to levy fees for students to participate in activities. And I just come at that from opposed to that for a variety of reasons. Number one, I'm a former athlete. I certainly believe that athletics and activities, I was also in the band, are part of what constitutes an educational experience in this state. And so to charge for those activities, to me, is not appropriate. The other thing I worry about is from an athletic standpoint, you know, my dad's a coach. I've seen over the years how sometimes the parent issues have escalated, and if you charge students to participate in athletics or activities that are sanctioned by the Activities Association, no matter how nominal the fee, I could see scenarios exist where you're just creating more problems, you know, for the coach-parent dynamic too.
You know, Senate Bill 124. I mean, that's the bill to go into effect, I believe, 2013, 2014. What are your thoughts on 124?
Well, I am a big proponent of 124, John. This is an issue that we've worked on for several years in Sioux Falls. And what Senate Bill 124 does is revises the education funding formula. Currently, you know, the law says in statute K-12 gets 3% or inflation, whatever's less. Well, what this is going to do is bump that up to 4% or inflation, whatever's greater, but it will be tied to the increased rate of state government revenue each year. So I believe it's a responsible approach because in good years, schools are going to be allowed to get more of the pie. In bad years, they'll have to make some sacrifices. But I'm a proponent of the legislation. I'm really hoping we can get it through the House Education Committee and ultimately the House floor this year.
Yeah. You know, and we're a proponent of 124 as well. I mean, we feel that for the future that's a good solution. But then I have to point out, because of my members, you know, we're working hard for the 1.2 to get that this year. Any thoughts? I mean, is that still even being discussed, the 1.2?
Well, there's still, you know, we're still in the process here. The Appropriations Committee has just finished meeting with all the agencies, and we have been having discussions in caucus and with the Appropriations Committee members where we will now start coming up with our list of potential cuts or, you know, revenue savers. And I think it would be premature to say that 1050 is going to pass for sure. You know, I just think we're still kind of in that stage where we need to know how much we need. But certainly, if you ask me what's your toughest decision, I would hope we can restore that this year.
Okay. Well, I wish we had 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I do. 10 minutes is just about completed. I know you've got a busy schedule, and we appreciate you sharing with us. We'll get this blog out to our members, and see you tomorrow in House Ed.
Thank you, John. I appreciate the opportunity.